Let's talk about money because, that's a huge issue. We all pay dollars. We all pay carbon taxes. Where is this money going? Well, since 2015, and I believe I pulled this from one of your studies, Dan, Trudeau has spent $60 billion, that's Prime Minister Trudeau, trying to get our global greenhouse emissions even lower. So they're around 1.5%, trying to reduce them even further. That's a lot of money. In the grand scheme of things, maybe not, but that to me seems like a lot of money. And now when we may have signed on to climate reparations, we will be paying even more. Is this reasonable?
Well, it's not reasonable, and it's a drop in the bucket compared to what the Trudeau government and their defenders, part of their coalition, the NDP and the Greens and the Bloc, have intended. They are looking at about a $2 trillion investment to provide net zero electrification by 2030 and 2050. I see those two dates because there's a number of steps in between. And to get there, they're going to have to spend a lot of money on the grids in this province and in this country. And to do that, they're going to have to obviously go to the public, to the well several times in order to pay for that. I don't think the public is aware of the implications, but they're starting to see it in terms of the electrical bills, which, as you know, in this province, with the first really genesis of all these energy ideas began with the 2010 Green Energy Act here in the province of Ontario, where your hydro rates have doubled since then.
Yes.
And it would have tripled were it not for the fact that the province of Ontario is absorbing a $7 billion debt just to pay to defend people from the full ravages of that policy. The reality is it's going to go much higher, and the federal government needs to find finances for it. Part of that, of course, is coming from carbon taxes, because as we know, they are not net neutral. They are certainly to the advantage of the government. It's a form of wealth distribution,
Yes.
but also an opportunity for green initiatives, and a lot of grifters making a lot of money.
That's for certain. I know you've mentioned on our show previously about the second carbon tax. It's not exactly named that. It's the Clean Fuel Standard. Could you explain how that will impact Canadian households and what exactly it is?
So we've completed a study with Ross McTeague not too long ago, in which we quantified the effect on the Canadian economy, a loss of about $70 billion in economic activity, a loss of about 1.2% in GDP. That's your entire economic outlook. The Clean Fuel Standard is really another attempt at trying to bring emissions down, focusing almost exclusively on refineries, on diesel and on gasoline. We had first said that it was wrong to do it to natural gas and to heating fuels, particularly given people needed to survive. Apparently, the government agreed with that. Certainly, the maritime provinces saw that first study, agreed with it. But it still continues the federal government down the road of not having just one carbon tax, but now a host of regulations that constitute a second carbon tax. And if you speak, Tanya, to any environmental economist, climate economist, William Nordhaus in particular, that's the sort of the one that everyone goes to. He's very clear. You do not complicate the existing carbon tax with other regulations that distort price discovery and, of course, the importance of the first one in terms of getting people to curb their behaviors. So here you have a federal government not just doubling down on a clean fuel standard, not just regulating the industry. Now, of course, even talking about emission caps, which I'll be working on over the next couple of weeks with yet another blog. We are setting ourselves up to be cute and trendy, and it's going to hurt the Canadian economy, deindustrialization, a dramatic drop in our standard of living, and, of course, energy costs that most of us cannot afford.
Well, I certainly hope that Canadian families won't be bankrupted for the sake of wokeness. That would be really, really unfortunate. Another about the Clean Fuel Standard, again, I pulled this from one of your articles. It said it would increase household energy costs by 2.2% to 6.5%, meaning it will add an extra about $1,200, $1,300 per year per worker. That's a lot.
That's right. So if you think about it, you have two people working in a family, it's an extra $2,500 a year. That's on top of the existing carbon tax, which the parliamentary budget officer has said will not be completely rebated. It means a decline in investments in Canada. It means a decline in our economic activity. And at the end of the day, the kicker is we won't reduce in any way, shape, or form emissions. Because part of the reason we're going to use the Clean Fuel Standard is by buying more ethanol, much of that from the United States, produced by coal and products that are not necessarily emissions friendly. Therefore, there will be, all we're basically doing is offloading our emissions numbers, getting our friends in the United States to increase theirs. At the end of the day, we're doing nothing for the environment. So it is, again, window dressing. at an extraordinarily high price that I think most Canadians are unaware of. They're starting to see it in grocery stores.
Right.
They're starting to see it in terms of winter costs for their natural gas and for the heating. To use an old expression, you ain't seen nothing yet.